It's Don here from the board. Thanks for coming along and checking out this video. Today's video is a little bit unusual for me, but it's still kind of in that same space about mechanical keyboards, and that is, of course, by the title, is I'm reviewing a desk mat. Now, it seems a little bit strange, except for the fact that desk mats actually are part of our community simply because we've got custom desk mats that match group buys for keycaps, key sets, things like that, as well as the fact that it's part of the aesthetics and even the sound and feel of our keyboards. So the backstory to this, and I want to say thank you to Orkey, is that one of the Orkey representatives contacted me about reviewing a mechanical keyboard for them, but when they found out that I was in Australia, that wasn't actually possible because their distribution centers didn't have one in Australia. They didn't actually have a store that sold mechanical keyboards directly through their Amazon distribution. And they asked me if I had anyone that, we had here that I could get it sent to for review. And I said, well, it doesn't really work very well because then I'd have to be proxying the keyboard over and paying shipping. So, they were like, well, that's a bit unfortunate. But then they suggested, well, what about a desk mat, a keyboard mat? And I said, that's perfectly fine. So obviously they had those within their Amazon store. And of course, as you all know, I'm very unbiased in the way that I review things. I'm very honest and forefront. So I want to say that they provided me with the desk mat that I'm reviewing today, free of charge. They sent it over to me. But of course, all of my opinions is 100% my own. And this video is not paid for or sponsored. They only provided me that sample. Now, when we review and look at things, we generally try and have a comparison baseline. So I thought, with desk mats, I've actually got a few desk mats. So it's actually okay to be able to compare and contrast how those desk mats are to what Orkey have sent me. So I've got 3 desk mats already of sorts, and I'm going to flip over to the tabletop now. So here we go. So the first one that we have here is my cherry desk mat. Okay, so it's this particular one. I use this one at work. Pretty much I have 2 desk mats that I use at work. This is your standard cherry one that a lot of us have in the community, including the misprints. This one I got directly from Taobao. It was actually picked up in China by my brother when he was over there on holiday, so that made things a little bit easier for me. So that's the first one I've got a comparison to. The second one I have technically isn't a keyboard desk mat, but it's actually a gun cleaning desk mat. So this is my Morza K98 mat. I actually got this one first before I got my cherry mat, and I also use this one at work. Whoa, be careful there, dear. Because it's, as you can see, well, maybe you can't see, but we'll talk about it very shortly. It's got a shorter profile to it in terms of its actual physical size. So it works for thinner spaces if you want to get into it. But this is designed for cleaning guns on. And the third desk mat is my mat that you see on a regular basis, which was very generously donated to me as part of our keyboard Kris Kringle Secret Santa, which is the board desk mat, which is also a thin sort of profile kind of mat and does the job fantastically well and works as the background for a lot of my videos. So they're the 3 desk mats that I have available for comparison to, and I know that they all have different price points to them. They have different characteristics, and that's what I'm going to be kind of looking at against the Orkey. So they sent it to me in this Amazon box, and look at the size of this thing. It's huge. It's massive. Which is really interesting because the size of the box versus the size of any of these mats is significantly bigger than it had to be, but it was probably the closest available size they've got. So let's first move some of these aside so I can have a little bit of desk space, and then we'll pop this out as well, and we can check out some of the characteristics that they talk about and the quality. Now what I've got here next to me is also my headset jig with the loop on it. So if we want to get some close-ups on it, that's available as well. But before we do that, let's just have a quick look at the actual listing. Now I'm not going to show the Amazon listing here, but the details is that it's meant to be a 90 by 40 centimeter or a 35.4 inch by 15.7 inch. It's meant to be 4 millimeters thick. It's washable, it's water resistant, and it's a non-slip rubber base. Now it talks about it being a precise, accurate mouse control, stability, full size, no big logo or graphics across the pad to distract you from intensive gaming sessions, stitched edges to prevent fraying, and yeah, it's a straight up, very simple black keyboard mat thing, whatever you want to call it, desk mat. In one corner it says Orkey, and then in the other corner it's got a logo. So that's pretty much what we're going to be looking at. Now it retails for $19.99 Australian plus shipping. So let's get this open and actually check it out. What I've got is I've got a tape measure of sorts there. I've got some calipers so I can measure the thickness of it, and I've got a little bit of water here in that cosmetic syringe, so we can just put some drops on it to see how it does for its water resistance. My little one is trying to get it on camera, upset for the fact that she's butt naked because she's in the middle of toilet training at the moment. She's like peeking around, and of course if she managed to get on camera butt naked, I would probably have to cease this recording straight away because that would get me into a lot of trouble. Now, packaging, more packaging. and this is really funny because it's a box inside a box that is packaged and wrapped. So that was a little bit weird. What else is in here? There's more packaging, and it's just some air pad bags down the bottom there as well. So I don't know why they couldn't have just sent me this straight up like that, but I guess the Amazon warehouse just has them like this. It's very nondescript. It's got some kind of barcode here, AUKEY, Orkey for something or other. So now I've got to do, it's almost like pass the parcel. So Orkey are one of those lesser OEM brands. It's sort of Chinese made stuff. They do have a couple of keyboards out there. I wouldn't say that they're terribly mainstream, but they're obviously looking to increase their market presence. They do an RGB keyboard, which is what they were originally talking with me about. And of course, if they were to increase their distribution and presence in Australia, I would love to be able to check out one of their keyboards as well. So, here we go. Bam. Go green with Orkey. Okay, so they're claiming some kind of recycled cardboard here. The package itself is very plain. It's really interesting because it's RoHS, so removal or reduction of hazardous substances. There's a USA code here. The top of it is just an Orkey logo, out of focus slightly, but it says Scepter Series. Okay, and the rest of the box, there we go, it says Orkey Extra Large Mouse Pad. So the box is quite nice. It's very simply presented, sealed with a stick tab on the top. Let's just get that open. And look at that. Nicely rolled up. It looks pretty good. Just by feeling that top, it feels really good quality stitching. And we're going to slide that out. Oh, there's a bit of card here. What does that say? What's in the box? Right. We can ditch that side. So, ooh, that's fancy. It's 24-month product warranty. So we've got a warranty card here. That's cool. And then we have a. This is really funny because it's a desk mat, it's a mouse pad, but it comes with a user manual. And I don't think I've ever seen that in any of the other ones, but hey, what can I say? They want to do things proper. So thank you for purchasing the KM-P3 mouse pad. Read this carefully, keep it for future reference. So you get the pad, the warranty, the card. It is neoprene, black, 900 by 400 by 4 millimeters, and it weighs 831 grams. So if it does, I've got really terrible weight estimation by that. Cleaning instructions: damp cloth, mild cleaner to gently clean the surface, let it dry completely. Do not use harsh cleaning agents. Do not machine wash or tumble dry. Oh, sorry, I was too focused on reading. I didn't see the camera wasn't focusing. So it's very specific in telling you don't chuck it in the washing machine. So as you can see, it's all Amazon based. So they've got very specific market sort of design there, where they're chosen to work out of Amazon only by the looks of it. So here it is. Look at that. So we've got an ROHS, which is interesting. I thought that was really more of a leaded thing, but I guess the regulations probably cover other things as well. Here's that Orkey design in that top corner. It's very firm neoprene, which is nice, and it's got that fresh neoprene rubber smell to it. It really does. Now, let's just get that out. So you can see it's very plain. It's very plain, and down here in this other corner, there is the Orkey. Orkey and the logo. That's it. The logo up the top here, and then the Orkey, where is it? Down here. So as promised, it's very, very plain. There's no distraction at all whatsoever. So we can see it's just black. It's just nothing but black. It's a good pitch of black. Now you might say, what the heck am I talking about? Because it's black as black, right? No, there's dark blacks, there's very light blacks, you know, there's black tones, all sorts of stuff. You put two different black things together and you'll see what I mean by that. In any case, it's very even in its material, and the back of this has a very sort of typical grid mesh, and we'll use the close-up camera very shortly to check it out, especially this print quality here. But the first and foremost is, let's check its dimensions. So it's meant to be 40 in this way, so let's get the tape measure. Funny thing about tape measures, my wife and I discovered that some of these plastic tapes that you get for sewing are not accurate at all. One of these tape measures that we've got, I don't even know where it came from. It's completely wrong. It's good to about 8 centimeters. Yeah, there you go. My wife just told me it's good up to 8 centimeters, and then it starts drifting. And by the time you get to 50 centimeters, it's like a couple of centimeters off. So we checked all of our other tape measures, and this one's correct. So I can tell you right now that it is indeed 40 centimeters. Now they're talking from stitch edging to stitch edging is 40 centimeters straight up. So tick. Now this one's going to be a little bit harder, but I'm going to hold that. I'm going to unfurl that and try and give it as good measure as I can across my lap. And this one's hard to do. It's slipping. Okay, come on. There we go. Oh, all right. So it actually isn't there. Now, I think I'm being fairly good with this, but I've actually got even a little bit of tension on this to try and get that straight, but it's actually short by 1 centimeter. Okay, so if you're expecting this to be like, if I roll that out completely flat and I put a bit of tension on that, I think it's really hard, because you know what, excuse me for a second, I'm going to just drop it on the floor and then I'll be able to give you something accurate, because that's the only way I'm going to be able to get it. I can't do it holding it up. So it being on the floor, it's actually 15 millimeters off. I'm not even kidding. Like, my floor is an absolute mess, but I can tell you right now, let's see if I can use my camera to my phone. Use my phone. Okay, so I'm going to line that up on that edge. Run that down. So let's take some pictures. So we'll see that that's there. And then if I go all the way down here, come on. Okay. Oh, right. Now, this is like the worst way of doing business, but so you can see I've got it laid out completely flat. Completely flat. Okay. And then if I have a look at the other photo, it's actually about 15 mils short. So that is a fat fail. Fat fail. You talk about being 90 centimeters. It's actually not 90 centimeters. It is 88.5 centimeters. Ba-bow. Now, is that going to be too much of an issue for some people? Probably not, but if you had a perfect space and it was 90 centimeters and you wanted 100% coverage from edge to edge and you bought this, you're not going to get it. You're not going to get it. So just be aware of that. Now, let's come to the 4 millimeter test. Okay, so here's the calipers, and this is going to be really hard because the calipers itself, like, it depends on how hard you press on it, right? But if you see I do it very lightly, it's actually reading 4 millimeters. So that's a good tick. And I've actually gone past that rolled seam where they've stitched it, and the calipers allow you to do that because they've got sort of that gap space there. So I've gone past that and made sure, and I've just contacted the surface, and it is indeed 4 millimeters. So that's tick. So out of the 3 dimensions, 900 by 400 by 4, it's actually reading 88.5, 400 by 4. So yeah, there we go. Now let's take those and move them aside. We're done with those. Let's do the water resistance test. So what I'm expecting to see here is that if I put some drops on it, it shouldn't absorb straight away into the surface. Now I've got some tissue paper here so I can clean up that, that water. Okay, here we go. There we go. So we got some droplets. You can even see that they're straight up just beading. I would kind of expect that because having the neoprene bottom, like, look at that, I can just suck that right up. It's not even going into the fabric, which is really great. Having the neoprene bottom helps, and having a synthetic top means it's also not likely to absorb in very quickly. If it was a natural fiber top, then I would expect it to probably pull in a lot faster. But if I just look at that, it just streams. Now there's a good point and there's a bad point for that, in that it's not going to absorb into your mat, but it will come off your mat. So if you have a spill, if you have a cup of tea, a cup of coffee, a soft drink, a beer, whatever, you're working on the mat and it hits the mat, it's not going to stay on the mat, it's going to go off the mat. So it's going to go even further depending on the force, and well, that might not be desired either. So water resistant top, cleanable, tick and tick. So that's pretty good. That's pretty good. So far so good. Right, now let's check out the actual quality. So the quality that I want to be looking at is the fabric top. I want to be looking at that print and I want to be looking at the stitching here. And to do that, I'm also going to be comparing it to the other mats that I've got here that are sitting on that desk. It's a lot of rubber. Okay, so I've got this rig baby again, and let's see how it goes. So off with that, on with that. Hey, it works. What happened previously was that while I was setting this up, it actually hung my computer. Actually crashed it. So we can see there's a bit of, I think maybe a focal issue going on at the moment. It's not focusing. There we go. Okay, so you got to hold it quite close. So what I'm going to do is I'm turning it sideways, because then I won't be able to get the mat in. So let's check out the other mats first. So this is the cherry mat. So the cherry mat, the actual material, we can see it's very sort of pinstripe spotted. The fabric itself is what's been printed. You can see the actual dots there, so that's all right. Now in terms of the stitch quality, it's very hard to see because of the light, isn't it? But let's see if I can get the lighting. Hadn't fully thought that one through, but I do have my light rig here. I just need to plug it in. I think that's it. Yeah, there we go. Aha. I do apologize if you were suddenly blinded. Blinded very, very badly. But let's see, how's that going to mess with the camera? It's not going to mess with it too much. Okay. Right. Hopefully that throws enough light. Okay, so we're back with the cherry mat. Okay, so we can see the texture of that mat, and we can see the actual, oh, we can see my fat finger, right? So it's very bright, but it's synthetic fibers, and that's the matte surface. I'm not a fabric expert, I'm not a textiles expert, but we can see that there's a good sort of evenness about it on the corner there, and whoa, that's like super saturated. Okay, that's a much better picture. So you can see that the ink and the dye has actually gone right into the fabric, and it's sort of got that texture and that ripple in it. On the underside, it's fairly generic. You can see there's a bunch of treads there. It provides a lot of really good solid grip on that. It's pretty grippy. Okay. Now let's go and check out the one that I got from Secret Santa. So this one's got a much flatter sort of stitch edge on that. It's really hard to work with because the camera is 90 degrees to me, so trying to move it, there we go. Oh, this light is really hectic bright, isn't it? Let's see if I can, oh. I do apologize, you please bear with me as I fumble my way around. Okay, will that help? Okay, so that texture, once again, very even, very similar kind of material. And then the actual thickness of that. You can see how this one's actually got a really good quality edge because the fibers aren't fraying. You can see that the fibers are very flat and very smooth. But this one's actually really thin by comparison. The actual rubber, when you squeeze on it, has no give in it whatsoever. And the back of that is once again that sort of same tread pattern. Okay, the print on this for Hebor, the board, whatever you want to call it, is not as clean and sharp, but that's because the actual image they used, they would have ripped it off one of our sites, and they're not very sharp. I don't think the camera's having a good time trying to focus on with the light. It's probably a bit too bright for it. Yeah. Okay. Now, the gun mat, so here's the tech mat. So the tech mat doesn't have edge stitching on it. I suppose it's because they don't want you to have an edge that's going to absorb oil and cleaning fluids and grease from cleaning. So it's straight up got just an open cut edge, as you can see right there. But you can sort of see the actual texture of what's inside the mat. And this has actually a good amount of spring to it. There's a good amount of squeeze that's available there. It has like a bit of compression, which is nice, though I'm not really doing very well focusing it. Come on, there we go. Okay, so you can see that sort of density, and it's got a good amount of sort of squeeze and compress, which is nice. The actual print on this is, once again, it's printed into that fabric top, because you can see the holes of that material that's in the actual print. Once again, the texture is very, very similar. It's quite smooth, and the back has that very characteristic material as well. So far everything has that same grip pattern on the back, and in terms of just their general grippiness, they all feel the same. They all feel the same. In terms of the actual front surface, they feel similar, but I'm going to say that the cherry mat actually is more satiny. The cherry mat is more satiny. So we'll have another quick overview of them all again in direct comparison after I do the Orkey one, and I'll move this rig away. And here is the Orkey. Okay, so let's have a look at this edge stitching, if I can get it to focus. Right, so this edge stitching is like the cherry mat. It's very fibrous and it's very thick. It's rounded edge stitching, which is fine, but it just means you're going to get, see those fibers, those loose fibers that are just sort of hanging out and waiting to fray. So as long as you're not terribly rough on it, that's not a big deal. The back, there's the tread pattern, very typical tread pattern there as well. And then if we check out the actual print, what's interesting is, unlike the others, this is very thick. You can see how it's not just absorbed into it, it actually completely covers the pores. So you've got a high amount of density that has had that print absorbed, and then some more on top. And I think that's quite nice. And it's in a corner that's far away from you that you're not likely to wear and rub away on it, so that's probably going to last a while. Whereas if I go down to the Orkey in the other corner as well, we can also see what that's, come on, where's my orientations? There we go. Is that are you gonna focus? Okay. So once again, you can see the texture on the letter A there. So they've actually applied a lot of that paint material, that sort of stuff that they're sticking on top. So it's gone into the actual surface, and then they've given it additional coats so that it actually, that pad print, so that it fills it in so you don't get that spotness about it. In regards to the texture, this is actually quite rough. It's not as satiny as some of those others. So, thank you very much for bearing through this this magnifying part. Let's see how that worked or not. Oh, I do apologize. I just hit the microphone with my arm, and if there was a big spike of noise, really, really sorry about that. Doing real well today, aren't I? Okay, so camera is off. Let's move the jig out of the way. Yep. Now, if you're hearing anything in the background, I don't know if you can or not. That's just my daughter watching the Wiggles. So, right. Now, how do we determine how smooth this mat is going to be? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this down, and I'm going to run my fingers across it, and it's very subjective naturally, but the sounds that you can hear from it will also give you an idea of what you're going to be expecting texture wise. Okay, so I'm going to drop the microphone down, and we can put each one down and run my fingers across it so you can hear the sounds, because you have an idea of what smoothness and slick sounds like by comparison. So that's the Orkey. This one is the board Secret Santa one. So it's got a bit more of a higher pitch to it, not as sort of low and rough to it. So I'm just going to move it back so it's the Orkey again. And then the board one. Now we're going to go to the gun mat. That one sounds very similar to the Orkey, but it feels smoother. And then finally, the cherry mat. It's actually really low noise. And for me, that low noise matches with the feel in that this cherry mat is actually the smoothest of all of these mats that we're testing. Yeah, straight up. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna take the cherry one and then I'll take these other ones away. And I'm going to do the direct comparison so you can hear what the cherry mat sounds like and what the Orkey mat sounds like. So here's the Orkey mat. And here's the cherry mat. Orkey, cherry. Now I don't know, and I can't tell if the microphone picked up that very well in the recording because I don't have my monitors on, but from my actual ears I can tell you right now there's a big difference between the two. I don't have a friction tester here, but if I had a friction tester you'd probably also be able to pick that up. But you know what, I wouldn't say that it's terribly rough, but it does have texture to it. Like straight up it's got texture to it, and if you put your mouse on it, it's okay. Like I wouldn't say it's rough at all because the Teflon pads on my mouse pad do just fine with it. But if you're expecting a really satiny finish, I wouldn't. It's got a really nice grain feel to it. But what I would say though is that it's actually going to be good for your keyboard because your keyboard's not going to slide around if that's what you're after. If you want the freedom to be able to push your keyboard and move it, then that might be a little bit more difficult on this because it does have more grip on that surface compared to that cherry mat. So there you have it. I realize looking at the clock now that I've just spoken about a desk mat for 35 minutes, but you know, that's part of reviewing. It's got a good thickness to it. It's got a good firm bounce to it. It's not too soft. The cherry one it doesn't have as much bounce to it. It is actually thinner. The cherry one straight up feels thinner. So much so that I'm actually going to measure how thin the cherry one is because it feels thinner. And you know what? The cherry one is thinner. It's not even 3 millimeters. The cherry one is actually just under 3 mil, 2 point something mil. So that explains it straight away. And of course my gun mat here, this tech mat is about just on 3 mil. And the board mat this one feels really thin. So yeah, it's only 2 mil. It's only 2 mil. So it's interesting that they all have neoprene backs and they've all got the same tread pattern, but the actual thickness is so different. And I think that's where this Orkey mat will win out because that 4 mil is actually really nice and cushiony. It's really bouncy. So that's a tick. That's a tick. So let's run over it again. it's meant to be 90 by 40 by 4 mil. It ticks off on the 4 mil, it ticks off on the 40, it doesn't tick off on the 90. It's short by 1.5 centimeters. It is really bouncy, it's really firm, and it's got some really great give to it. Okay, so if you're going to be like, you can see my whole desk is flexing and I push on it, and it's not hard at all. So if you want that, I think it'd probably have some good dampening features for sound as well because of that absorption quality it's got. The mat itself isn't gonna slide around very easily, and your keyboard won't as well, but the surface is a bit rougher. It's very clean in its look. I do like the logo being up there and just being all by itself. And now I'm going to talk about the blacks very, very quickly. So you can see straight away that if you ignore the writing there and you look at the actual black to the black, the cherry black is not as dark as that black. Maybe the camera's not going to take it across very well, but I can tell you right now, this cherry matte black is not as dark as that one. And if we go to the tech mat and we compare it, once again, the Orkey is much darker than the tech mat, right? And then if we go to the board, it's a very big difference, but it's also the sheen factor on that too. But this would have been printed off our logo, so that black in itself, if it came off our logo black, then that's probably why, but that's also a much blacker black. There you have it. There is the Orkey. So if you want it, you can find it on Amazon. It's pretty affordable, I'm going to say, and it meets almost everything except for that length requirement. So thank you very much, guys from Orkey, for sending this to me for review. I really appreciate it. I think you've done a bang up job on that. Just might need to make sure that when these get trimmed in the factory that they do fully meet that sizing that you said it is, especially if the edges shrink from having the stitching put around it. So there you have it. There you have it. Thank you, of course, for everyone who's actually hung through this 38, practically 40-minute video looking at this mouse pad, desk mat, key mat, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, I'm actually going to get Space Cadet. I've already pre-ordered that as well, so I'll be looking forward to getting that. I don't know if I'm going to be doing a review as extensive as this though, but you can always check it out on Instagram once I get that in. So thank you everybody for supporting us here on the board, including our Patreon supporters and all of our listeners of the podcast. And as always, until next time, happy clacking.